It was a picture-perfect trip that came to an abrupt halt in Australia when authorities found 3 Canadians carrying extra baggage, 200 pounds of cocaine with a street value of $23 million.
Melina and Isabel weren't looking for a side hustle. They were looking for a lifestyle. In 2016, these 2 Canadian girls hopped on a luxury cruise ship, the MSC Princess, for a 7-week world tour. We're talking about a $20,000 trip, hitting the UK, Colombia, Peru, and Australia. Melina was moving like a queen, claiming a sugar daddy had funded the whole vibe, just so she could be a decoy. They weren't moving in silence. They were doing the most on Instagram, posting photos in bikinis on exotic beaches and sipping drinks in New York and Bermuda. They had that main character energy, thinking they were untouchable as long as they kept the aesthetic clean. They were tripping if they thought a couple of cocaine babes could just sail across the world with a suitcase full of secrets without the feds peeping the card. While their followers were double-tapping their luxury vacation photos, the authorities were taking notes. Melina and Isabel were thirsty for that travel influencer clout, flooding the gram with "living my best life" captions. But underneath the sun-kissed filters and the designer gear, their cabin was packed with heat. They were muling 95 kilograms of cocaine, worth a staggering $16 million. They thought they were finessing the system by looking like clueless tourists, but the Australian Border Force and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security were already on their bumper. They were broadcasting their exact location to the whole world, making it too easy for the feds to track the vibes. They were balling on a budget that didn't belong to them, and the debt was about to come due. The glamour hit a brick wall the second the ship docked in Sydney. As soon as they pulled up to the harbor, the Australian authorities entered the chat with drug-sniffing dogs. Melina and Isabel were caught lacking in their tiny cabin. When the cops popped the trunk, or in this case, the suitcases, they found the mountain of white hidden under their summer fits. The bikini babes were suddenly cuffed up in silver bracelets, and the Instagram filters were officially off. They went from stunting on a cruise to sobbing in a precinct in record time. It was a total wipeout. The media dubbed them the cocaine babes, and their viral fame turned into a global scandal that stayed trending for all the wrong reasons. When the receipts came out in court, the sugar daddy excuse didn't slide. The judge wasn't interested in their follower count or their travel vlog. He saw 2 girls who sold their souls for a free trip and some clout. Isabel folded and pleaded guilty early, but Melina tried to cap her way out of it before finally taking the L. They were clapped with heavy sentences, 8 years for Melina and 7.5 for Isabel. They went from counting sunsets to counting bricks in an Australian prison cell. Their story became the ultimate cautionary tale about the price of the flex. They wanted to be famous influencers, and they got their millions of views, but the contract they signed cost them their youth and their freedom. Talk about a tough look that stayed bookmarked forever.
New tonight, a former Charlotte bank employee facing federal charges accused of stealing tens of thousands of dollars from his job. And prosecutors say the evidence is all over social media. Photo after photo of the suspect.
Arlando Henderson wasn't your average 9-to-5er. He was a guy who looked at a bank vault and saw a personal ATM. Back in 2019, he managed to bag a job at a Wells Fargo branch in Charlotte, North Carolina. But instead of being a straight shooter and climbing the corporate ladder, Arlando started playing a dangerous game of finders keepers. As a vault technician, he had the keys to the kingdom, and it didn't take long for him to start pocketing the bread. We're talking about cold, hard cash that customers were depositing, thinking their money was safe. Arlando was slick, or so he thought, taking small bags at first, a few hundred here, 1,000 there, until he got bold enough to swipe over $13,000 in a single hit. He was out there finessing the system, falsifying bank documents, and cooking the books like a pro chef to make sure the numbers looked legit on paper.
He thought he had found the ultimate infinite money glitch, but little did he know he was building his own house of cards. He was living on borrowed time, playing with the bank's chips while the heat was slowly simmering in the background, just waiting to boil over. Now, if you're out there moving like a ghost, you don't go haunting the internet. But Orlando just couldn't help himself. He had that clout fever. Instead of moving in silence like a real boss, he decided to become the poster child for doing too much on social media. Orlando started flooding his Facebook and Instagram feeds with flexes that would make a lottery winner blush. We're talking about photos of him grinning ear to ear, holding massive stacks of blue strips, $100 bills, like they were stacks of pancakes. He was out there living his best life, showing off designer fits, and even dropping a cool 20 racks in cash as a down payment for a shiny white Mercedes-Benz. He even adopted the rap name AC Foes and started dropping tracks, bragging about how he ain't with being broke. It was a total facepalm moment because he was literally handing the feds a roadmap to his crimes. He was thirsty for likes and validation, forgetting that the internet is forever, and that the people watching his stories weren't just his day ones, but the authorities who were starting to wonder where a bank teller got that kind of guap. While Orlando was out there balling on a budget, well, the bank's budget, the FBI and the IRS were busy sniffing out the cap. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that a guy making a teller's salary shouldn't be making it rain at every club or buying luxury whips with cash. The feds started digging through the crates, looking at his bank records and comparing them to his social media stunting. They found that on almost 20 different occasions he had pinched money from the vault. Every time he posted a photo with a new stack of cash, the timing perfectly matched a shortage at the Wells Fargo branch. They were on his bumper, tracking the serial numbers and the fraudulent deposit slips he tried to hide. Orlando was tripping if he thought his fake entries were going to save him from the forensic accountants who do this in their sleep. They had him dead to rights. The jig was up, and while Orlando was probably planning his next big spend, the authorities were getting their ducks in a row to shut down the AC Foes show for good. He was cooked, and the paper trail he left behind was a mile long. The climax of this clown show went down in San Diego, where the feds finally caught him lacking. They swooped in and put the silver bracelets on him before he could drop another flex or record another verse. Orlando Henderson's get-rich-quick scheme hit a brick wall at 100 miles per hour. He was hit with 19 counts of theft and embezzlement, along with money laundering charges that would make anyone's head spin. When he stood before the man in court, the bravado was gone. He eventually took a plea deal, admitting to bank fraud because the evidence was just too savage to fight. He went from counting stacks to counting days behind bars. The white Mercedes was gone, the blue strips were seized, and the clout he chased so hard turned into a cautionary tale for the ages. He learned the hard way that chasing the bag the wrong way leads to a dead end. In the end, Orlando became a legend for all the wrong reasons, a Hall of Fame member of the world's dumbest criminals who literally snitched on themselves for a few double taps. Talk about a tough look that cost him everything.
Now the story of an Auburn student facing nearly a dozen charges after police say he attempted to play out the video game Grand Theft Auto in real life.
I sprinted out here, just watched him caught up on the
Zachary Burgess wasn't looking for a side hustle or a quick buck. He was looking for 5 stars on his wanted level. Back in 2013, this 20-year-old college kid was out in Auburn, Alabama, feeling like he was the main character in a simulation. He didn't just want a vibe, he wanted to crash out. Zachary spotted a running truck in a parking lot, and instead of walking past like a civilian, he decided to go full GTA mode. He hopped into the driver's seat, despite there being a passenger still inside, and hit the gas like he was trying to escape Los Santos. He wasn't moving stealthy, he was sending it. At that moment, Zachary had completely lost the plot, thinking the real world had a respawn button and that he could just finesse the laws of physics. He was tripping on a level that most people can't even imagine, turning a regular night into a crash dummy experiment that was destined to end in a massive L. Once he had the whip under his control, Zachary went absolutely feral. He started pinballing through the parking lot, slamming into parked cars like they were obstacles in a minigame. We aren't talking about a little fender bender. This dude managed to total or damage 9 different vehicles in a matter of minutes. He was wilding out, causing pure mayhem, while the terrified passenger was stuck in the death seat, wondering if this was the end of the line. Zachary wasn't trying to get away. He was trying to see how much smoke he could create. It was a total shambles. Every crunch of metal was another nail in his coffin, but he was too busy role-playing his favorite video game to notice that real-life NPCs were actually real people with insurance claims. He was tweaking for sure, pushing that truck to the limit and leaving a trail of scrap metal behind him, like he was trying to break a high score in a burnout challenge.
He wouldn't speak to me, he wouldn't look at me, it was like he was in the zone.
The heat didn't take long to show up, and unlike the game, you can't just drive into a pay and spray to lose the cops. When the authorities finally boxed him in, Zachary didn't even try to cap about what he was doing. He was caught lacking in the middle of the wreckage, surrounded by angry car owners and flashing blue lights. When the officers hauled him out of the truck, Zachary dropped a line that immediately made him a Hall of Fame dumb criminal. He straight up told the cops he just wanted to know what it was like to play GTA. No cap. He really thought the simulation excuse was going to slide. The police were dead at his logic, realizing they weren't dealing with a mastermind, but a clown who had spent way too much time behind a controller. They cuffed him up and tossed him in the back of the paddy wagon, ending his 5-star run before he could even find a cheat code to get out of it.
When Zachary finally hit the loading screen of a jail cell, the pixelated fantasy finally faded to black. He was hit with a savage list of charges, including theft of a motor vehicle, 9 counts of leaving the scene of an accident, and public intoxication. There was no start button to restart the level. His mugshot went mega viral, becoming the face of "Don't let your games become your reality." He went from bawling in a stolen truck to sitting in the yard, realizing that in the real world, the cops don't stop chasing you just because you hid in an alleyway for 30 seconds. He became a meme for the ages, the guy who crashed out for the sake of a vibe check that went horribly wrong. He learned the hardest lesson of all. When you play Grand Theft Auto in real life, the only thing you're unlocking is a long-term stay in a state-funded room and board. It was a tough look that proved Zachary was definitely not him.
I'm at the York County Courthouse where Hannah Sabata has been sentenced to a term of 10 to 20 years in prison for committing bank robbery in Waco. You probably remember this case. The 19-year-old from Stromsburg admitted to the fact that she did steal a car, she did rob the bank.
No gun was ever shown inside the bank. She just said that she had a gun with her, but no.
Hannah Sabata wasn't trying to be a ghost, she was trying to be a star. Back in 2012, this 19-year-old from Nebraska woke up and decided she was done with the struggle bus. She rolled up to a local bank, threw on a hoodie and some shades, and pressed the teller with a note saying she had a gun and a bomb. It was a total crash-out move. She managed to finesse the bank for about $6,000 in cold hard cash. But instead of dipping and laying low like a real pro, Hannah was already thinking about her online presence. She didn't just want the bread, she wanted the clout. She went home feeling like a female Robin Hood, thinking she had just pulled off the heist of the century. She was bugging if she thought a small-town bank robbery wouldn't bring the smoke immediately. She was down bad but feeling up, completely oblivious to the fact that she was about to snitch on herself in the most cringe way possible. Instead of burning the evidence, Hannah decided to drop a vlog. She grabbed her camera, sat on her floor, and recorded a 7-minute video titled "Chick Bank Robber." No cap, she actually titled it that. In the video, she started flexing the stacks of blue strips and greenbacks, waving the cash at the camera like she just won the lottery. She was doing the most, bragging about how she stole a car and robbed a bank to pay off her student loans and go on a shopping spree. She even held up a sign that said, "I robbed a bank," while smoking a bowl, looking straight into the lens like she was untouchable. It was the ultimate facepalm moment. She was thirsty for views, giving the world a play-by-play of her crimes while the receipts were literally in her hand. She thought she was living her best life, but she was really just uploading her own arrest warrant to the entire planet. It didn't take long for the internet to do its thing. Someone peeped the video and realized this wasn't a skit, this was a confession. The video started trending for all the wrong reasons, and it didn't take a detective to figure out who she was. The police didn't even have to work the block, they just had to hit the play button. They pulled up to her house while she was probably still reading the comments on her video. When the cops raided the spot, they found the stacks, the clothes she wore during the hit, and the stolen whip. Hannah was caught lacking in the most embarrassing way possible. She tried to move like a boss, but she ended up tripping over her own ego. The feds were probably dead at how easy she made it for them. She wanted to go viral, and she definitely did, as the dumbest criminal to ever hit the upload button. When Hannah hit the courtroom stage, the YouTube filter was officially off. The judge wasn't looking for engagement or likes, he was looking at felony charges. The prosecutors played her own video in court, and let's be real, there's no comeback for that. You can't cap your way out of a 1080p confession. She pleaded guilty because the evidence was savage and undeniable. The judge clapped her with a sentence of 10 to 20 years, turning her shopping spree dreams into a prison yard reality. She went from counting stacks on camera to counting days in a cell. Her story became a legendary fail, a cautionary tale for anyone who thinks clout is worth more than freedom. In the end, Hannah Sabata got her millions of views, but the price of that sub was her entire youth. Talk about a tough look that stayed live forever.
Andrew Hennels wasn't exactly the brains of the operation, mostly because there was no operation, just a guy with a bad idea and a smartphone. Back in 2015, over in the UK, this 19-year-old crash dummy decided he wanted to hit a pharmacy for some quick guap. But instead of moving in silence like a real professional, Andrew decided to treat his criminal debut like a movie premiere. He hopped on Facebook and dropped a status update that would make any lawyer facepalm into the next dimension. He literally posted, "Doing Tesco over," along with a photo of a big old knife and a pair of gloves. He was clout chasing before the job even started, basically tagging the police in his own crime plan. He thought he was being a savage or some kind of local legend, but in reality, he was just snitching on himself to his entire friend list. He was bugging if he thought nobody would notice a dude announcing a robbery on a public feed. He was down bad, and his digital footprint was already screaming guilty before he even stepped foot out of his front door. After dropping the bag on social media, Andrew actually followed through with his tweeted threat. He rolled up to a Superdrug pharmacy in Kings Lynn, looking like a total goon with his knife out, ready to finesse the cashier. He wasn't looking for meds, he was looking for that fast cash to fund his lifestyle. He pressed the staff, brandishing that blade he just showed off to his Facebook followers, and managed to swipe about 410 pounds, nearly $500 from the till. He thought he was ballin' now, feeling like a high-stakes robber who just hit a lick. But here's the cap. While he was inside playing tough guy, the locals were already peeping his card. People had seen him acting sus, and more importantly, some of his day ones on Facebook had already seen the post and realized this clown was actually doing it. He walked out of that pharmacy thinking he was him, but the clock was ticking at triple speed. He was living on a prayer, and his 15 minutes of fame were about to turn into 15 minutes of shame as the heat started closing in from every corner.
Andrew didn't even have time to spend his stolen bread before the boys in blue entered the chat. Because he was doing too much on the internet, the police didn't have to play detective for long. They had his name, his face, and his confession all served up on a silver platter. Within just 15 minutes of the robbery, the cops caught him lacking near a pub. They didn't need a search warrant to know he was the guy. He was still carrying the same knife and the cash he just finned from the pharmacy. It was a total wipeout. He went from stunting on the gram to being cuffed up on the sidewalk in record time. The police were probably laughing their heads off because this was the easiest collar they'd made all year. He tried to dodge the rain, but he walked straight into a monsoon. He was cooked, fried, and laid to the side. The authorities didn't even have to break a sweat to smoke this case out, all thanks to Andrew's thirsty need for a few likes and a viral status. When Andrew stood in front of the judge, all that big energy from his Facebook post had completely evaporated. He realized he wasn't a gangsta. He was just a meme in the making. The prosecutors didn't even have to work hard. They just printed out his Facebook status and said, "Look at this clown." He pleaded guilty because honestly, what else was he going to do? Cap to the judge when his own post had a timestamp? No shot. The judge clapped him with a 4-year sentence, sending him straight to the big house to think about his social media habits. He went from posting for the fans to sitting in a cell, realizing that the internet is forever, and it's also a great way to get a one-way ticket to prison. His story went mega viral as the poster child for dumbest criminals alive. He wanted to be famous, and he got exactly what he asked for, just not the way he planned. Now, the only thing he's posting is his time in the yard, proving that clout is a hell of a drug that leads straight to a dead end.
Admits he stole gas from a police cruiser.
Once he posted the picture of him in the act and making an obscene gesture on Facebook, it spread like wildfire and Jenkins police began investigating.
Michael Baker wasn't out here trying to be a mastermind. He was just a 20-year-old crash dummy with a thirsty gas tank and zero common sense. Back in 2012, in the small town of Jenkins, Kentucky, Michael was wandering the streets when he spotted a sitting duck, a marked police cruiser just chilling in a parking lot. Instead of moving smart, Michael decided it was the perfect time to finesse some free fuel. He grabbed a siphoning hose and a gas can, acting like he was untouchable. But he didn't just want the gas, he wanted the clout. He had his girlfriend, Joanne, standing by like a hype man to capture the whole savage moment on camera. He wasn't moving in silence, he was posing for the fans before the crime was even finished. He was tripping if he thought he could disrespect the law like that and not catch a backlash. Once the lick was done, Michael did the most facepalm thing imaginable. He didn't just go home and lay low. He hopped straight onto Facebook to drop the receipts. He uploaded a photo of himself siphoning the gas while flipping the bird, giving the middle finger to the camera with a big old grin. He was flexing for his day once, thinking he was a local legend for robbing the boys in blue. The post started blowing up, but not just with his homies. The Jenkins Police Department entered the chat and couldn't believe their eyes. This dude had literally tagged himself in a crime against the very people who get paid to catch him. He was doing too much, handing the feds a slam dunk case on a silver platter while he sat back and waited for the likes to roll in. The boys in blue didn't have to play detective for more than 5 minutes. They pulled up to Michael's spot and caught him lacking before the gas was even out of his tank. When the silver bracelets came out, Michael started capping hard. He told the media and the cops that it was just a joke and that he barely even took any gas. His girlfriend tried to vouch for him, saying if they were real thieves, they wouldn't have put it on Facebook. But the police chief wasn't feeling the vibe. He told everyone that if Michael was bold enough to steal from a cop car, he'd steal from anybody. Michael was cooked. He went from laughing on the gram to sitting in a cell in record time. There was no cheat code to get out of this cell, and the whole town was dead at his absolute audacity.
Funny, take a picture and didn't post it on Facebook.
Even after getting clapped with a night in the big house, Michael still didn't learn his lesson. As soon as he got out, he went right back to his old ways on social media. He posted a status saying, "Just got out of jail. Yeah, lol. I went to jail over Facebook." He thought the notoriety was a win, but in reality, he just became the poster child for world's dumbest criminals. He wanted that viral energy, and he got it. But now his legacy is being the guy who snitched on himself for a few gallons of unleaded. He became a permanent meme, a cautionary tale for every wannabe goon who thinks internet points are worth more than freedom. In the end, Michael Baker stayed thirsty for attention and ended up drinking a big old cup of justice. Talk about a tough look that stayed trending for all the wrong reasons.
Horrible. I don't even know where the next gas station is. This is horrible, guys. I have no idea.
Can I help you?
Hi there. I just saw a girl on Periscope driving drunk. She doesn't know where she is, and she's driving really fast.
Whitney Beale wasn't just off the clock, she was off the rails. Back in 2015 in Lakeland, Florida, this 23-year-old decided to go on a liquor run that would end up being a digital disaster. After a night of heavy partying, instead of calling an Uber or moving smart, Whitney hopped into her car and decided to go live on the Periscope app. She wasn't just tipsy, she was faded to the max. She started her stream with total main character energy, telling her viewers exactly what she was doing. She wasn't moving in silence, she was broadcasting her bad decisions to anyone with an internet connection. She was tripping if she thought the world was just going to sit back and watch her crash out without consequences. She was down bad for attention, and she was about to get exactly what she asked for in the most savage way possible. As Whitney finessed her way through the dark streets, she started dropping receipts on her own crime. She looked straight into the camera and said, "I am super drunk in the USA. Let's see if I get a DUI." No cap, she actually dared the universe to catch her. She was doing the most, laughing as she hit curbs and swerved all over the road. While she was busy clout chasing and checking her view count, her followers weren't just sending hearts, they were sending the feds. People in the chat were pleading with her to stop, but she was too lost in the sauce to care. She thought she was being a legend, but she was really just uploading her own arrest warrant in real time. She was thirsty for engagement, but she didn't realize the Lakeland PD was about to enter the chat. The police didn't need a search warrant or a tip-off, they just needed a data plan. Officers logged onto the stream and started tracking the vibes. They used the landmarks in her video to triangulate her location like a real-life mission. They were on her bumper before she could even finish her next sentence. When the blue lights finally started flashing behind her, the reality of the situation finally hit different. Whitney was caught lacking with her phone still recording the whole bust. She went from stunting for the fans to failing a sobriety test on camera. It was a total wipeout. The police didn't even have to interrogate her. They already had a 1080p high-definition confession saved to the cloud.